All right, let me formally begin the session. It is past 11. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Good morning and assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the team of National Institute of Banking and Finance, I welcome all the worthy speakers and the participants. I would like to thank, first of all, the senior management of the State Bank of Pakistan, NIBAF, and Rifa University of Islamabad for coordinating and facilitating this webinar. Our special thanks for the members of Shari'ah Advisory Committee of State Bank of Pakistan and our esteemed speaker, Dr. Mohamad Akram Laldin, for making time for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic COVID-19 has changed the dynamics and the reality of all our lives. We are witnessing and testing the agility and adaptability of our systems, policies, and indeed the time-tested theories. Thanks to the advancement of technology, the populace is very much connected even in these isolating times, enabling valuable exchange of knowledge and ideas for shaping the future. It is to discuss these challenges presented by this pandemic that we are honored to have Dr. Akram Laldin with us to share his thoughts and views on the impact that the COVID-19 will have on Islamic finance and some arising Shari'ah issues. Dr. Mohamad Akram Laldin is Executive Director at the International Shari'ah Research Academy for Islamic Finance. He's a professor at the International Center for Education in Islamic Finance. He has been member of various councils and forums, including Bank Negara, Malaysia's Advisory Council, the Education Board of EOFI, and various committees for Islamic banks and other institutions. Dr. Laldin holds a PhD in Principles of Islamic Jurisprudence from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland, and has presented a number of papers related to Islamic banking and finance on national and international forums. Before we formally begin, I would request Mr. Ghulam Muhammad Abbasi, Director of Islamic Banking Department at the State Bank of Pakistan, to deliver a welcome note.
Thank you, Razia. On behalf of the State Bank of Pakistan and NIBAF, I welcome you all, and especially our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Mohamad Akram Laldin. And also I welcome our Shari'ah Advisory Committee members of the State Bank of Pakistan, along with the senior professors and the Sharia scholars from the banking industry, from Rifa University, as well as other universities, and along with the senior executive of the Islamic banking industry. Thank you, NIBAF, for arranging this webinar at a very short notice. And it is a kind of a need of time under COVID scenario, and particularly when this jurisdiction have got a spike in the COVID-19 in terms of the number of cases. And the industry is being facilitated not only by the government of Pakistan, but also by the central bank. Globally, the COVID-19 have got the impact not only on the human life, but also on the economic activity. We at the Central Bank of Pakistan have taken, right at the beginning, took several initiatives not only to curtail the impact of this pandemic on the growth of the economy, as well as on the environment, and facilitate the industry. In this regard, I would just like to share with the Honorable Professor and the audience about the few of the steps which the Central Bank has taken, major steps to curtail the impact of the COVID-19. First of all, we not only reduced our policy rate by 5.25% from March to date, the policy rate. And along with that, we have issued a number of refinance schemes for the industry at a very concessionary rate. And the flagship program is regarding our wages and salaries scheme, where we have provided to the not only to the Islamic banking industry but also to the conventional banking industry a cheaper liquidity to the banks to provide this kind of refinance facility, so that onward they can lend at a cheaper rate to the businesses, and those businesses with the commitment they won't lay off their employees. So in this way, millions of people have been saved from the layoffs by providing this facility, and the number of approved cases have gone beyond, gone beyond around 100 billion. So the facility is being taken off at a very fast pace. Government of Pakistan supported this facility, particularly for the small corporates and SMEs, for coming up with a risk-sharing facility. And just today, I have heard that ECC have also approved that for SMEs, the risk-sharing facility would increase from 40% to 60% on first loss basis. That is the disbursed portfolio loss. If it is 60%, then it would be covered by the GOP guarantee. So it's kind of a facilitated environment for the small businesses to prevent the layoffs of those businesses. Coupled with that, we have deferred the principal amount, markup amount, rescheduling and restructuring facilitative circulars issued by the State Bank of Pakistan. For Islamic banking industry, our Shari'ah Advisory Committee took a very prompt action on this COVID-19 situation arises, and they provided guidelines to the industry regarding there are different contracts under the Sharia. So what are the issues in rescheduling and deferment of the principal amount in those contracts? So for that purpose, a comprehensive guidelines have been issued by our Sharia Advisory Committee, have approved those guidelines and we issued for the industry so that they can get the benefit of that and they can be facilitated. And we have got a helpline online facility for the industry as well to have any kind of a questions or queries so that our whole COVID team can respond to those queries. So these are the few of the initiative which we have taken along with the online payment side. We have also the banking side as well. On the check which have been issued by any of the bank, they can be at the counter, they can be in cash. Similarly, the charges for the online have also been rationalized by the banks. And similarly for the exporters, the performance requirement for the export refinance facility they got, we have reduced the actually the performance requirement for the exporters, and also the shipment periods and export receipt realization have also been deferred for the 6 months period. So similarly on the banking side as well as on the economy side, the government of Pakistan and the central bank, as along with all the jurisdiction globally, that's because COVID-19 is a kind of serious threat to the economy. So we took several initiatives, which I have just explained. I would encourage all the participants that in the end, of course, there is a session for the question and answer. They should, they must have the question in their mind, because Dr. Professor Mohamad Akram Laldin is a very renowned scholar. He's got several years of experience. I have personally heard him and met him, and it's a very good time for the audience, which is, of course, a very senior scholars as well as the bankers. They raise the question so that they can have the more clarity about the Sharia issues under this COVID-19 scenario. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts and valuable comments, and for summarizing some of the concessions that the State Bank of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan have awarded to the industry. I would now formally like to invite Dr. Mohamad Akram Laldin and give the floor to him for starting this session.
Let me just start first and then we can. Okay, أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, first of all, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His grace and mercy that we are here to take a very, perhaps, difficult situation. There are a lot of constraints that we are having nowadays, but despite that, Alhamdulillah, we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should always praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the things that we have. I would like to thank our brothers and sisters at NIBAF and also the State Bank of Pakistan and also Rifah University and to Brother Ghulam Abbasi and our respected Shari'ah Advisory Council and all brothers and sisters. I would like to thank all of you. Perhaps what I'm going to do for the next hours or so is to share with you some of the slides that I have prepared and hope inshallah we can benefit from the presentation, and then we can, if you have any question, then perhaps you can ask me. Can you see the screen now? I've shared my screen.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay, all right. Okay, actually, every time when I think what is happening nowadays, I think always agree that it is some sort of test from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and I don't think so. Syrian, which is very severe. There was some other, you see, Ebola and whatnot. It was confined to certain part of the globe. But this pandemic that we are experiencing nowadays, I mean, it is across the globe, and I think everyone is affected by this kind of by this pandemic that we are having. But again, as I mentioned earlier on, you see, we always praise Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. We always thank Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Time of upon ourselves, you see, not only at individual level, perhaps at the community level, at the country level. I think everyone have to do some sort of reflection in order for us to learn lessons and also to make this pandemic as an opportunity for us, inshallah, for us to do better in the future, inshallah. Okay, brothers and sisters, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to share with you some points that I have prepared in the slide, some introduction, and then the impact of COVID-19 on the business information. You already have it with you, and also some of the measure that is being taken in different part of the world, you see, in order to address this pandemic. And I think different countries have reacted towards the pandemic. Some measure that is being taken across the globe. And also then I will go into Islamic finance, what are the impact of Islamic finance and how Islamic finance can respond to COVID-19. And then we'll go to, I think, the bulk of my discussion will also be focused towards the selected Shari'ah issues in the related to this COVID, because there are several issues that has been discussed, I think, at the level of Shari'ah Advisory Councils in different jurisdictions. And I remember, I think, during Ramadan, there was a discussion even among several Shari'ah Advisory Council at the national level, which was facilitated the central bank, in which there are several issues that has been discussed, and even that has also discussed, I mean, the impact and also several Sharia issues. So I'm going to go through some of these issues, summarize it, you see, and if some of you might have followed the Nadwatul Barakah, which was held in Ramadan, also I think the Nadwatul Barakah also discussed some aspect of the some Sharia issues related to COVID-19. Okay, let me just, okay. If you look at this introduction, of course, when we talk about this pandemic, it is something actually that no one has expected that it is going to be this severe, which will hurt. We have experienced, as I mentioned earlier on, we have experienced several pandemic or some kind of this kind of issues in the past, but it was not as severe as what we are experiencing nowadays. Even though if you look into the history, we have read in the history in the past, I mean, there was some instances in Bilad Sham and in some the book of history, there are some occasions where people need to lock themselves in, and also they couldn't mix with each other in order to avoid, you see, the spread of this pandemic even in the past. But I think at the scale that we are seeing nowadays, I think this time, perhaps for the past 50 or 100 years, this is the first that experiencing, and nobody has expected this. So if you look into the figures, you can see that I mean, this figure was taken about a week back, also on the 10th of June, where there are more than 7 million people has been affected throughout the globe with this pandemic. Has reached out almost 4.5 million, 450,000 deaths, you see, and there are over 3.7 million people that has recovered from the disease, and 213 countries affected by this disease. And I think there are just some handful countries which are not affected by this pandemic. And this, of course, I mean, has become a very big, public, and it is a serious challenge to the economy, particularly when we talk about that during the lockdown period. You see, even though now we can see that quite a number of countries, I mean, they have to a certain extent ease the lockdown, but still some estimates that it will take about 2 years to 3 years for us to come back to where we used to be. And you can imagine the kind of losses, you see, that is going to be borne by the different jurisdictions during this 2 years period, where there will be limited economic activities. What more when we talk about the costs, you see, that is incurred, see, for and the unfortunate thing is that, I mean, those people, the B40 people within the community, they are the one that is going to be affected much with this pandemic. And even in Malaysia, take for example, I think the latest figure that we have a couple of days back, where about 5%, I mean, the unemployment rate has risen 5% for the past month. I mean, that is quite. We have not assessed yet the full impact of this pandemic yet. So even in other part of the country, and I believe even in Pakistan, I mean, there are several studies that has been done on this. So we can see that there are many countries that face multiple crises, health crisis, collapse of commodity prices, especially commodity exporters, and all of this interact in complex ways. And I think the worst thing is that you can see that the systemic effect, you see, that is affecting the economy as a whole, where take for example nowadays when aeroplane does not fly, okay, you can see that the impact is not only for the company that is operating the aeroplane, but it also goes into the industry, the tourism industry. Of course, I mean, tourism industry in most of the countries, I mean, it brings good income to the countries. So you can imagine that how many people are going to be affected by the
I once again request.
So you can see that big effect from. I mean, you can see that the systemic impact you see, of this pandemic, you see, it is not only into one particular industry, as I mentioned. So it will affect in all industry. Take as I give the example earlier on about the airline industry. Of course, it will encroach even into the tourism industry. It will encroach even to the food industry because you see there are a lot of food which is being supplied to the airline, for example. Okay, and there are so many other areas that will be affected by this pandemic. And you can see that according to the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, the global economy could suffer between 5.8 trillion US dollars and 8.8 trillion in loss, equal to about 6.7% of the GDP, and as a district. And the United Nations Work Agency cautioned hundreds of millions of people could be left without work. Many people off, and of course, I mean, to find job and to get back, I mean, all these people into job is also another, I would say, challenge things. And then the global stock market have suffered dramatic falls. You see, Dow Jones reported its largest ever single points in March 2020. The growth in advanced economies is projected at -6% this year. Emerging market and developing economies also have normal growth level well above advanced economies, are also projected to have negative growth or -1%, -2.2%. More countries are revising, you see, growth projection from time to time. I'll give you some of the figure later on. And in IMF studies, it is estimated that the global GDP will fall even further by additional 3% in 2020 if the pandemic not recede. And I think the thing is that we are talking about 2020, but then the impact in 2020, perhaps, I mean, we can also see the impact in 2021. Perhaps it might go well into 2022, 2023, and so on and so forth, because I mean, time will be needed in order for us to pick up from where we left in the past. So this is, you know, I mean, some of the downside scenario that we can see. Even, I mean, the world GDP growth is the US, Japan, and also Eurozone, and the downturn in the world with the US economy contracting more than 10% in 2020 by close to about 6%. So again, there will be a lot of thinking to do, a lot of planning that needs to be done, you see, for us to move forward in the future, inshallah. Great. I mean, if you look at the real GDP growth as the European country from 2020 to 2021, and you can see that is moving towards negative. You see, Greece, Italy, you see, even the EU itself, it is going to shrink by 7.4%. The European country, see that all moving or projecting and perhaps it might encroach into next year, as I mentioned. And the Asian Development Bank also recently released its Asian Development Outlook for 2020 and forecasted that a 2.2% growth for developing Asia and 1.0% growth for Southeast Asia as a whole. For example, Indonesia projected a 5.3% growth in 2020 earlier on, but it has been reduced to 0.5%. They can achieve that as well as some other country. I mean, you can say, yeah, these are some of the figures that you can see that Brunei, for example, the initial forecast is that it is going to be 1.5, and then I think not much. I mean, they have revised it. Cambodia down to 3. Malaysia that we have Ministry of Finance forecast as well as the central bank forecast, which was later on. The Ministry of Finance was in February, and then the central bank further revised, the forecast in April. You see, when they see that the impact, because I think earlier on, the expectation was the pandemic is not going to prolong that long. But then we can see that now, even now, it started end of last year. Perhaps some expected that it might last for 2 to 3 months, but we are now in June. In June, you see. But again, you can see that there are many countries which are still struggling. You see, to open cases, and what more not to mention about reviving has been announced by several countries, but to what extent that this stimulus package is going to be effected, you see, under the current situation. So you can see that, you see, even in Southeast Asia, the different countries are having, you see, different downward forecasts when it comes to some expected more and some less. So there are several measures that has been taken by several jurisdictions, you see, whether in Asia or across the globe. For example, Singapore government has set out 2 separate stimulus packages totaling around 12% of GDP, include wage subsidies, direct support to household, and aid for the food, aviation, and tourism sectors. Of course, I think off, perhaps they still have the buffer, you see, for them to announce the stimulus package. I think the downward is that for those countries that have to borrow in order for them to fund the stimulus package, I think that, you see, the impact is going to be seen in the future. You see, even, for Malaysia, 3 stimulus package that the as one of the largest in Southeast Asia at 70.6%, and still can see that the local businesses sector, even service sector, you see, they are as that the job loss to 2%, 15%, yeah, respective workforce. So in general, you can see the globe, and these are some of the packages that different countries have loan and guarantees, firms, support for those on short hours, more for and support for vulnerable. Of course, the government can all the. So if you look into Islamic finance, of course, there are quite a number of tools that we can use in Islamic finance, and of course, as all of us know, that in Islamic finance we have the the material part of it, and also we have the social part of it. I think this is one of the important part of Islamic finance. That is the reason why we always mention about the maqasid dimension of Islamic finance. You see, and through the alignment between the underlying principle of Islamic finance and also sustainable and responsible investment, we can, through the integration of these two, we can, inshallah, you see, move further when it comes to addressing, the different challenge that we are facing in Islamic finance. And I think the beauty is that there are several instruments within Islamic economic ecosystem that can be used. We have the awqaf, for example, we have the zakah, we have the sadaqah. I mean, all these tools that we have, if it is being used in an effective manner, I strongly believe that we can really use it effectively in order to overcome the challenges that we have with this current pandemic that is happening. And historically also, we can see that awqaf is considered as an important Islamic instrument and can directly be used for poverty alleviation and financing of education and health sector, as well as many other use, because awqaf especially, we can see that it is, I mean, the benefit of awqaf is really huge, and it transcends groups, because if you look at zakah, of course, zakah predominantly, we can say that zakah is to be used for the Muslim, even though there is a portion for wafat qulubuhum, but generally, I mean, the usage is always for Muslims, you see. And but awqaf, of course, I mean, the scope is wider. And also, of course, I mean, when we talk about sukuk, you see, that is also another area where we can always benefit from it. Next. Okay, I'm going, if you look into our experience in Malaysia, you see, we have one corporation in Malaysia by the name of An-Nur Waqaf, where, I mean, they have set up hospital, clinics and whatnot using the Waqaf instrument, where, I mean, this is one of the, I think, good success story that we can see, where even at the moment, I mean, there are quite a number of hospitals that has been set up. And I think in the case of Pakistan, even, I mean, there are many examples in which the Sadaqah institution are being used, the Waqaf institution are being used for education as well as for health and for many other purposes. So, I mean, all this, you see, what is important, I believe that in empowering awqaf is that we have to ensure that it is being managed properly in a proper manner. You see, I think management of waqaf is very, very, very important. That is the reason why, I mean, all the modern tools, you see, we need to use it in order for us to empower awqaf especially. For example, accountability, transparency, and also accountability. I mean, nowadays, of course, I mean, there are many tools that we can use. You see, I think the simple one is that we can get the auditor, for example, to audit how the awqaf money are being used and to what extent, I mean, it is, you see, properly being channeled to the intended purpose for waqaf. I think until we really manage our awqaf in a professional manner, then there might be certain issue, particularly for people to donate as well as for people to benefit from it. Okay, now I'll go to the Shari'ah issues. I mean, selected Shari'ah issues related to the pandemic. And I think the first issue that many financial institution is having is that the liquidity issue. I think this is not only for Islamic financial institution, but it is also extended to the conventional financial institution, where the Islamic financial institution may face the issue of liquidity when implement the moratorium of 6 months on financing repayment for those impacted by the current situation. If you look into the different experience of different countries, you see, there are some countries in which the moratorium, some countries they go for 3 months, some countries they go for 6 months. If I can take the example of Malaysia, for example, the government have given the moratorium for 6 months for the financing repayment for Islamic and also loan repayment for the conventional. And 6 months, actually, it is a long period if you are looking at the impact of such, I would say, period or moratorium period that is given. You see, and there are two models that is adopted by different jurisdictions. In Malaysia, for example, auto moratorium is granted to each and every people who have taken financing from the banks, whether it is Islamic or conventional. In which, I mean, this has really impacted because those who does not want to opt for the moratorium, then they have to inform the financial institution. That is the case in Malaysia. That's why I think there has been several modification that has been done by the central bank even. You see, when they realize that the impact is really huge for the financial institution. So in case of customer cannot pay moratorium of 6 months, IFI will face issue of liquidity and loss, substantial amount that will impact their depositors. Actually, now the worry is that the post-moratorium period, meaning that the moratorium period, if I'm mistaken, started from March, April, May, June, July, August. You see, so come September, what will happen? Whether those who are given, I mean, this 6-month moratorium period, are they able to repay or pay their financing amount or not? I mean, that is another worry, I think, in which the financial institutions are also looking at it. You see, so the Islamic financial institution will have to bear the modification loss, and also it might impact the credit rating of the banks. Of course, I mean, different banks will have different capability, and this also may arise some Shari'ah issues regarding the legal ruling about the installments that were postponed during the pandemic period. I'll come to the variation in contract later on. So in addition, charging an amount against delay of installment in light of the COVID-19 pandemic circumstances, whether that is allowed or that is not allowed. So we go to the next slide. I see, generally, I mean, if you look into the Islamic financial institution globally, I think in most cases, see, the financing, I'm not going to segmentize it, but I would take generally, you see, most of the financings use murabaha, you see, where, for example, if I want to buy a house, for example, I go to the Islamic bank will purchase the house at certain price and then sell it over to me at markup. I mean, this is what murabaha is all about, you see. And when I sell, when the bank sell the commodity to the bank, to the client, of course, the sale price is fixed. That's why usually how the pricing is being calculated by the Islamic bank is that, I mean, they have factored in all the risks that they are going to assume as a result of the, providing the financing. That's why sometimes, there are some model where they balloon the price and then they are giving a rebate. Put aside, I mean, what different views, different interpretation that is given by the scholars on this. But for example, in our case in Malaysia, most of the bank, you see, they will balloon the price and then they will give rebate. I mean, this is what we call as the flexi murabaha, you see, where the rebate is given monthly, and some of the banks are giving it yearly. See, so now, since the price is fixed, so what is important is that from the Sharia point of view, if I'm providing a murabaha instrument or murabaha facility to any of my client, then I cannot increase the price. You see, in the conventional, I mean, they can always adjust the payment based on the interest rate. But in murabaha, for example, the price is fixed. If I have sold certain asset to you at 1 million dollar, for example, I cannot increase that amount. So even though if there is an extension, because in most cases, if you can see, the moratorium period is 6 months, for example, and then the repayment period will be further extended for 6 months. For example, the financing tenure is 5 years. So now it becomes 5 years, 6 months, in light of the 6-month moratorium that is being given. You see, so I mean the 6 month, of course, moratorium will have its own cost. So from the Sharia point of view, even though the repayment tenure is being extended, but then the bank have no right to increase the price because the price is already fixed. Okay, that is in the murabaha. So according to Sharia, the authority of the contracting parties to amend the contract is restricted. Hence, an increase in the indebted price against the deferment of the settlement will result in riba ad-duyun, which is, of course, I mean, prohibited from the Sharia point of view. So, you see, next slide. The dilemma here is, of course, I mean, the moratorium usually is being issued by the central bank, but of course, this will not change. You see the Sharia position when it comes to the ruling that Sharia have given. That is the reason why, you see, the binding aspect of such regulatory instruction will have to be addressed, you see, and it will not change the nature of agreement on deferment of installment for new maturity dates. Now, I give you the example of Malaysia, how this is being addressed, you see, because as I mentioned earlier on, the price is being ballooned by the financial institution, and then they will give the rebate, see, every month. So for those banks who have this mechanism intact, so what they can do is that, of course, I mean, they cannot change the shilling price that has been agreed with the customer. But what is being done by the bank is that, I mean, they will adjust, you see, the amount of rebate that is being given to the client. Okay, and of course, from my point of view, this has to be regulated by the regulator, because we do not want, at the end of the day, the bank to take advantage and you see, gain more at the expense of the client. So how the mechanism of the rebate that is to be given by the bank to the client, I believe it has to be directed by the regulator, and I believe that, you see, in most jurisdictions that have this kind of arrangement, it has to be monitored by the regulator, so that under these difficult circumstances, of course, we do not want the people to suffer. At the same time, I mean, we do not want the bank to go bankrupt. You see, so we need to strike the balance between the two, where yes, I mean, perhaps, I mean, bank have to take the pinch of the pandemic, you see. And of course, I think in giving the rebate, you see, there is some discussion whether rebate can be made compulsory, mandatory or not. My point of view on this is that the regulator have the right. That's why I said, you see, in this case, the regulator have to play their role. You see, as a regulator, they need to protect the interests of the client. If you look into the classical view, of course, the rebate has to be at discretion of the, in our situation, at the discretion of the bank. Yes, you see, that is the classical view. But my personal view on this is that, for me, the regulator are bound to ensure that the interests of the client are being protected. So the regulator, under the purview of maslahah al-ammah, you see, the regulator should come in and some sort of regulate the market. I mean, this is from the point of view of the regulation as well. So I think different jurisdiction will have, different way in doing it. Even if the financing is given in the form of ijara, for example. As you know that ijara, it is a flexible kind of financing. You see, where the rental can be agreed by the parties and it can be reviewed from time to time. You see, so it is a floating mechanism. Basically, it is not a fixed mechanism. But again, if the financing is given on the basis of ijara, also, I strongly believe that the bank, you see, should take into account the interest of the client. Again, in this case, I believe that the regulator have to come in order for them to regulate the market. Okay, I will go quickly on the next few items. On the zakah, expediting and delaying zakah before the completion of its howl. Now, this has been discussed in Nadwatul Barakah, okay? And there are views that is given by the scholars on this. And I think generally speaking, under the current circumstances, I think most of the scholars have agreed that it is allowed, you see, for the payer to pay their zakah earlier on, or to expedite the payment of the zakah before the howl, before it comes to 1 Hijri year. Of course, for those who have the nisab, this is in order to use the money to be used, you see, for the benefit of the people. So of course, once they have paid it, then they don't have to pay it after the howl, after 1 year has come to has completed 1 year. Okay, the next issue, I think this the electricity discounts and temporary pay leave during the pandemic. If you look, next slide. Again, the utility services and whatnot, this has also been done by in many countries, and I think from the Sharia point of view, you see, in order to protect the interests of the people, you see, it is important for the government also to look into the interests of the people. And I think for us here in Malaysia, yes, the authority have given, you see, the discounts as well as temporary leave from paying the utilities for a certain period of time, even though there are contract between the service provider and also the people at large. So this is the items that the provider can always look into it and try to amend whatever clauses, you see, that is related. And this is very much in line with Maqasid al-Shari'ah and also looking into maslahah al-ammah of people. Okay, next. I go to the next slide. Okay, amwal al-mujannabah. Basically, amwal al-mujannabah, these are the illegal earnings, see, that is earned by some financial institutions, you see, where, for example, one of the example is that if they impose fine for people who delay in the payment of their monthly installment, so that amount has to be channeled to the charity account. In certain, you see, institution, they call it charity account, even though personally I'm not very much inclined towards using it or using the word charity, you see, because at the end of the day, these are non-halal income, you see, which has to be channeled for good purposes, you see. So we call it illegal earnings, you see. And whether is it allowed to invest it in a short-term investment and then spending it with its profit to cover financial institution operating expenses during the pandemic or not, you see. If it is, if you look into the resolution of the Nadratul Barakah. Of course, I think it is a known fact that these earnings cannot be used for any purpose that will be benefited by the bank. You see, even of course it cannot be paid, you see, as a salary or or to cover certain expenses of the bank and whatnot. It cannot be used for that purpose. As I mentioned, anything that is beneficial for the bank directly or indirectly, this cannot be used. But it can be used for other purpose, you see, that is beneficial for the people as a whole. In certain jurisdiction, I mean, we can see that there are funds which are being instituted by the government, you see, in order to help the people at large for during this time of pandemic. So we can see that, you see, in some countries, you see the bank is contributing to this kind of fund, you see, so that is allowed, of course, I mean, to be utilized in order for the benefit of the people at large. Okay, next. Even you can see that during this period, the SMEs particularly, I mean, they are very much affected. Perhaps this fund can also be used, you see, to enhance the capability of the SMEs so that they will come out from the difficulties in which they are in. And there are some scholars who have allowed, I mean, this the fund to provide Qardul Hasan, for example, but it is preferable for the money to be given outrightly, and it has to be done through the guidance of the Sharia advisors. Okay, next. This is the last issue that I would like to share with you, amending contracts under the circumstances of the pandemic. I mean, this is, again, it's very tricky, you see, of course, because as we know that when it comes to contract in Islamic law, I mean, it is something which is regulated, and there are hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, there are the verses of the Quran. Okay, even in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uqud, or you believe fulfill all the contracts. Of course, I mean, this is including all what has been agreed in the contract. However, from the Sharia point of view, you see, there are circumstances where certain amendment can be done in the contract where it involves the effect of the pandemic. Let's say if it is for the whole community, it cannot, something that cannot be avoided or prevented. And if it happened because of an external factor that is not related to the contractual parties. I mean, in the civil law, I mean, we can see that, I mean, they have this force majeure clauses usually in the contract, you see, that might allow some sort of flexibility. But then, from what I heard, even in the legal fraternity, they are still discussing, see, whether the current pandemic falls within the definition of force majeure or not. So in the circumstances of the contract have changed due to the pandemic, such as what we are experiencing now, it will be fair to amend the contract to the extent that the damage is overcome or cancelled, and this is to raise the harm which encouraged by Sharia. You can see that there is a hadith which says that La darara wa la dirar, and even the Islamic Fiqh Academy stated that there is the possibility to amend the contract when situation and prices are changed, and the amendment of the contract should be done in a way that will not cause harm to one or to both of the parties. And it has to be done, you see, either by the agreement of the parties involved in the contract, or if that cannot be done, next slide please, that can be, if that cannot be done, and then of course, I mean, the judge, if it is brought to the court, then the judge will have to look into the case, and the judge will have the right to amend the contractual rights and obligation in a manner that will not harm any of the parties. Next slide. And of course, I mean, the best way is that the reconciliation between the parties. This is more preferable. You see, as mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Sulhu jaizun bainal muslimin illa sulhan harrama halalan aw ahalla haraman wal muslimun ala shurutihim illa syartan harrama halalan aw ahalla haraman." You see, so a sulh meaning that the parties come into an agreement, I mean, win-win situation between them in order for them to find, you know, a way out. Okay, I think I will stop there. You see, I've seen that there are several questions. You see, perhaps there are so many. I think there are many questions that have come. Okay, so perhaps maybe I can just go through some of it. You see, there is one question. Murabahah goods are sold, then the money of the customer comes in, then why we cannot give rebate on the dain. As I mentioned, I mean, it has become a dain, but then the creditor have the right to give rebate, you see, because if somebody owe me, I mean, certain amount of money, then it is my right if I want to forego the obligation of the other party on me. So there is no issue, except that, of course, I mean, the contentious among the scholar is that whether it can be forced or not. See, as I mentioned, you see earlier on, it is for me, the regulator have to come in, you see, as a way and means in order to find a solution for both parties, in order for both parties not to be affected by the measures that is being taken. Okay, can we open for question? The mechanism for deferment of principal and collection of profit in terms of murabahah should be elaborated. I mentioned one mechanism earlier on the rebate. I mean, providing rebate, but then, I mean, there are other mechanisms that has been suggested by some of the scholars. This is through commodity murabaha. Even though personally, of course, I'm not very much inclined this, in which, I mean, the parties can enter into, you see, another commodity murabaha arrangement in order for the amount from the second commodity murabaha arrangement to repay the debt of the first facility, you see, and then the second facility will take will be paid by the client. Because for me, I mean, in this kind of arrangement, there will be the issue of, in Arabic we call it qalbud dain. You see, where you are replacing one loan with another, one dain with another dain. So there might be certain Sharia issue involved in it, even though I've seen that there are some Sharia advisors that have given the allowance for this, but then and there are in certain jurisdictions there are certain conditions that has been given, provided let's say the dain, I mean, is not mu'sir. You see, it is a musir, I mean that it is a solvent debtor. In such situation, you can have this kind of arrangement. But as I mentioned, I would prefer that the parties, you see, sit down and try to find a solution, because at this difficult time, I strongly believe that both, I mean, the financial institution must also think about for the benefit of the people, and at the same time, of course, we do not want the whole impact is being undertaken by the financial institution. That's why I did mention, I think, in my earlier slide, you see, about this, the impact to the financial institution, where from the from the accounting point of view, also they will have this impact of the modification loss because of the modification in the tenure of the payment. So there will be impact on the modification loss, and this of course will also impact the rating of the financial institution. And I think that is the last thing that, you know, the financial institution wanted to happen to them, that because of this it will impact their rating and whatnot. And I think even the regulator is also does not want, I mean, this kind of thing happen to the financial institution. So see, we need to find, I mean, the middle way how both parties can benefit, you see, and can to a certain extent compromise with each other when it comes to facing this situation. According to the guideline, IBI cannot use the charity fund for the benefit of their own staff, irrespective they are deserving or not. But as per suggestion, whether, you know, the bank can use for their own staff or not, my personal view on this is that, I mean, if the staff is deserving, where the staff is affected by the pandemic in one way or another, then they can be, they can be considered, you see, for this fund. But then, you see, one issue is that the bank cannot give the fund to the client or to the staff for them to use the money to repay their debt towards the bank. I mean, this one, no. Because there are some queries where certain bank, you see, they said, okay, we can give part of the money to our client with the condition that the client use that money in order to repay their financing amount. So this one, I think, because if you put that kind of condition, then of course, I mean, the bank is benefiting because from the charity fund. And we mentioned that, I mean, generally speaking, that the bank should not in any way benefit from it, either directly or indirectly. But if it is given to them for them to, let's say, pay their utility bills, I mean, for them to use for some other purpose, then there is no problem, and then there is no issue for that. So perhaps, I think, again, at the end of the day, I think this kind of issue should be deliberated by the respective Shari'ah committee, Shari'ah board, you see, and it should be the different dimension that is affecting the staff of the financial institution and people at large, I mean, should be taken into account as well. Because, I mean, the circumstances that we are in is very exceptional at the moment. Perhaps there might be certain, you know, there might be certain ruling that was given earlier on under the normal circumstances. I mean, it might apply to those circumstances, but under the exceptional circumstances, there might be certain rethinking, re-looking at the rulings that need to be looked at. So perhaps, I think, at the end of the day, it should go back to the Shari'ah committee, Shari'ah expert to discuss and also deliberate on this issue. Okay. Amount of rebate to be foregone in case of delay will be calculated on what basis? If bank extend rebate on the basis of daily basis, then this will be riba. What are the way to calculate? Well, you see, as I mentioned earlier on, there might be different basis of a calculation. That is the reason why my suggestion is that for the regulator to come in and provide what is the best way to calculate the rebate, so as not to harm both parties. I mean the client as well as the bank. What are the calculation method and the what way how to do it? Perhaps it can be discussed at the scholar level, and I think for us in Malaysia we are also looking into it, even at the regulatory level. We did discuss on this, and we are looking into this as well. Issue of charity fund is important. If we can change the use of policy of charity fund as in Shari'ah. But of course, I mean, to change the policy, then the different stakeholders, the Sharia scholars, the regulator and whatnot, I mean, have to come in, and also try to find what is the best way, because you cannot change a policy under exceptional circumstances. I mean, this is one thing that we have to bear in mind, because under the current circumstances is considered as an exceptional circumstances. So you might have certain policy that you want to relook at it, you see, at the moment, you see, to address the circumstances in which we are in at the moment. But then when things goes back to normal, then perhaps the earlier policy might be well suited for the normal circumstances. There might be some exceptional there and here, you see. So personally, I don't see that we need to revamp the policy and whatnot. But then we can always look at the policy and try to amend it, you see, in order for us to address the current circumstances in which we are in.
So there is a comment from...
I was asking about the deferment of principal and collection of profit in Murabaha financing facility that is already provided to the client, not about the new financing arrangement. I cannot get the question. Deferment of principal and collection of profit in Murabaha financing facility. I think the rebate and whatnot that I explained earlier on, it is for the existing facility, not for the new financing arrangement. The new financing arrangement, as I mentioned just now, that one, there might be some other Shari'ah issue, Al-Mudayin and whatnot. That one I mentioned earlier on as one of the way out which is suggested. I agree bank to take care of its customer, but to me customer means both borrower and depositor. If bank forge its side on borrower, then it's the depositor who is going to suffer. You take on. Yes, I can understand that. You see, I can understand that. You see, all parties have to be, yes, bank also have their obligation towards their depositors, no doubt about that. You see, so that, you see, for me, I mean, since everyone is affected by the pandemic at large, so everyone will have to be responsible enough, you see, to understand, you see, and adjust perhaps according to the circumstances in which we are in. Yes, I mean, the banks always say that, well, I mean, if we take less, if we make less money from the financing that we are giving, then we have the obligation to pay to our depositors and whatnot. I understand this. But then again, we need to find a middle way so that not everyone is affected. See, again, I mean, this might need some sort of holistic approach, you see, where the regulator as well as all the stakeholders have to come and try to address the situation. It is not easy, yes. You see, it is not easy, but then under these circumstances, people have to understand the situation. The measure that is taken by the central bank under current circumstances, if you look into the measure that is taken by the regulator at this juncture, I believe that I think in most jurisdictions in which I'm involved, I can see that the immediate measure that is being taken is in order to address the inability of the people to pay their the financing amount. You see, that is I think the prime concern at this juncture. So perhaps moving forward, we will see that there might be some other measure that is being taken by the regulator in the future. But because this is the main concern at the moment, that's why there have been some talks among some regulators that I know, that how can we empower, for example, Wakaf and whatnot. You see, what are the mechanisms that can be used, and even some have started, you see, using, I mean, all these tools, the Islamic social finance tools that is available in order to assist in this pandemic. So perhaps I think in the months to come, we might see some other initiative that is going to be taken by the regulator as well, you see, and also by the industry at large, because you see, at the moment, if we look, I mean, there is this disconnection between the financial institution and Islamic social finance tools. You see, how many banks are using Wakaf, for example? How many banks are assisting in the collection of zakah, for example? How many banks are involved in the administration of zakah, for example? You see, I'm not saying that we should give the mandate to the bank to manage all this, but I believe that since financial institutions, they have the mechanism, they have the infrastructure that can be used, you see, to empower this mechanism, then why not we use the infrastructure that is available? Take, for example, if each depositor agree, let's say 0.1% of the profit that I get from whatever investment that I put in the bank is going to go into a special Wakaf fund, for example. Then you can imagine, you see, or I will donate, let's say, 100 rupee per month to the fund, for example. See, so they do have the infrastructure. So why not we use this infrastructure in order for the financial institution, for the Wakaf, for the Zakah tools to be enhanced. So this is important. You see, we can use the infrastructure that is available. But of course, I mean, this will entail, you see, more collaboration among the financial institutions. Take, for example, here in Malaysia, there is a Wakaf platform that has been established by several banks. See, where, I mean, they have come together. You see, several banks have come together, and they are some sort of marketing, I mean, these Wakaf tools to their client. So people can put into this Wakaf fund. And of course, I mean, everything is transparent, how much it is collected, and there will be a committee among the people from the different financial institutions, among the religious authority, to come together, and all of them come together in order to manage this fund, and everything is transparent, where on the platform they have everything is there, how much money that they collected, how the money is being used. They use it for health purpose, for education purpose, for so many other purposes. Even, I mean, they provide financing, you see, loan, of course, an interest-free loan for those people, for SMEs and whatnot, and everything is transparent, and whatever is generated will come back to the fund. So this is, I think, what we really need. You see, we can use the infrastructure that is available within the financial institution, because now there is a disconnection between what the financial institutions are doing and also all these social tools that is available within the Islamic economic system. So why not we try to connect and try to benefit from these tools that we have, and also the infrastructure have. Okay. Usually, istisna funds are being used to settle the other debts raised with customer, murabaha. I cannot get this. Why istisna funds are being used to settle the debts of murabaha or diminishing musyarakah? Okay, in case no compensation given to bank against delayed payments, especially in case of murabaha, then pool will be hit severely, and this won't be hitting the right of depositors in any case. As I mentioned, you see, I can understand, I mean, both sides of it, but then we need to have a balance between the two. You see, that's why for me, I mean, the regulator have to come in so that both sides will not be harmed. You see, with this with the situation. If customer requests for deferment of principal and agree to pay rent in Ijarah facility, where there is a rental concept in Ijarah, how we can handle? I cannot get the question. The COVID has immensely affected the banking sector, and bankers are more exposed to this pandemic. However, our regulator did not give any directive to commercial bank. I think that the regulator have to take, of course, I mean, in Malaysia, I think the regulator is still, there are still a lot of work in progress that is being done by the regulator in order to address this pandemic. You see, that's why even I think at our level, I mean, there are, of course, I mean, there are, I mean, especially, I mean, this moratorium issue, we are still deliberating it, we are still discussing it, you see, on how to strike the balance between not harming the industry as well as at the same time, you see, assisting the people. You see, I mean, the work is still in progress. In terms of rebate, of course, I think you mentioned about rebate. Since we are discussing about the pandemic, student bank usually don't give rebate as murabah is a sale transaction. Shall we change accordingly? Or it's only matter, I mentioned that the murabah in which the bank provide rebate is that where the bank have already ballooned the murabah price, and then they are giving the rebate. I mean, I'm not talking about usually the commodity murabaha where personal financing is involved. I mean, there is no room usually for this kind of rebate. Okay. Okay. This is the peak time to introduce different type of wakaf in Pakistan, as it's unfortunately lost product and not been given important except takaful. Yeah, I totally agree. You see, with Mufti Najib, that it is important for us to empower wakaf because I think the beauty of Waqaf is that, I mean, there are less restriction when it comes to Waqaf, and it can be used for so many purposes. And we have seen the success. We have read, there are so many success stories when it comes to Waqaf across the globe. You see, where in the past we can see that there are a lot of infrastructure is being built as a result of the Waqaf institution that was empowered. And even until now, for example, if you go to Turkey, for example, I mean, there are many institutions in Turkey that is still being funded by Waqaf. Even some of the masajid and whatnot is still being funded by Waqaf. And I think the beauty about the Turkey model is that, I mean, they have this Waqf Zurri, where, I mean, the family Waqaf concept is still very active in that society. And you can see that the family Waqaf that was established hundreds or even sometimes, you know, thousands of years back is still there, and it is still being used until today. So why not because sometimes we have this Waqaf that we are giving it to the authority for them to manage and whatnot. I mean, that is one part of Waqaf, but at the same time, you see, the family Waqaf institution also have to be developed so that, you see, I mean, we do have many wealthy people, and some of them nowadays we can see that they are establishing foundation, for example. You see, so instead of establishing foundation, why not establish Waqaf? So that, you see, I mean, Waqaf has an Islamic connotation to it. But I think the worry sometimes is that in the situation in which I'm in here in Malaysia, I can see that there are many wealth people. I mean, they establish foundation because there are adequate legal framework for foundation. But when it comes to Waqaf, I mean, there are still, you know, not, you know, I mean, there is no adequate legal and governance framework that is available for Awqaf. So I think we need to develop a robust legal framework when it comes to Waqaf. And at the same time, of course, the management of Waqaf, as I mentioned, transparency, as well as, you see, accountability and whatnot. I mean, that has to be in place in order for us to gain the trust of the people if we were to really empower the Waqaf institution. In Malaysia, the Waqaf model that is being used, actually in Malaysia, we do have certain issue when it comes to Waqaf, because in Malaysia, Waqaf is under the jurisdiction of the state government. It is not under the federal list. Even in the constitution, if you look into Malaysian constitution, you see all matters related to religion, including Awqaf, Zakah and whatnot, it is under the state list. So it is under the state jurisdiction. So in Malaysia, of course, we have 14 states, including the federal territory. So one of the obstacles that we have is that whenever a bank wanted to develop a Waqaf instrument, then the bank will have to get the blessing of the state religious authority, you see, in which I mean, the bank is dealing with. You see, so we can see that some of the, I mean, some bank, I mean, they are dealing with different state authority. So among the model that we have in Malaysia is that the bank, they collaborate with the specific state religious institution, and they use whatever infrastructure facility that the bank have in order for them to collect Waqaf. And cash Waqaf particularly is very, I would say, very much accepted within the Malaysian jurisdiction, where and there are I mean, there are very, very creative sometimes. You see, take for example, even at the masjid level, let's say if a masjid wanted to change the carpet, okay, what they will do sometimes is that, okay, they will issue a coupon, you see, which connotate certain amount, you see, which represent, you see, a certain part of the carpet. So they will do that way. You see, so people know that when they give, let's say, X amount, so they will get, let's say, certain square foot of the carpet and whatnot. So they will do this kind of you see, innovation that they have come up, you see, in order for them to empower the cash wakaf instrument. So similarly, you see, at the bank is using their own infrastructure, you see, and bank are encouraging their customers, not only their own customers, but also others to contribute to that particular wakaf fund that is being established, you see, so that people can contribute. And as I mentioned, it is very important to be transparent. So I think the different platform that we have by the banks, they are very transparent. So they report everything what they do, and that of course will encourage people to contribute to the wakaf fund. Does it necessary to evaluate by the authorities that wakaf is properly working? I believe that we need to have a legal and governance framework for wakaf. You see, just like any other, when you have a fund, for example, you see there is certain requirement for audit, I mean, disclosure and whatnot. You see, even, I mean, those who are managing the fund, if they are receiving certain fee and whatnot, how much fee they are receiving, everything has to be disclosed and everything has to be transparent. I strongly believe that we need the same thing for wakaf as well as for zakat. You see, the problem is that sometimes because of the lack of the governance as well as accountability, we have heard that, you see, sometimes, I mean, there are money which is channels for charitable purpose, for Islamic charitable purpose and whatnot, is being misused by some people. I mean, this has happened. But if we have a strong and robust legal as well as governance framework, then that will really help. And I think different jurisdiction will have different ways and means, you see, in order to undertake this. And again, it is not that easy. Now, wakaf fund can also be formed instead of reserve collectively from all the banks under the supervision of the bank, the regulator. Yes, I would say that. But then you have to understand that the reserve has its own function. You see, reserve has its own function, but then wakaf fund will have a different function, which is more social function. You see, but when it comes to reserve, I mean, it is very much related to governance. It is very much to ensure the prudence as well as the robustness of the institution. So it has its own function. Social responsibility is only one of the objectives of the bank and must have to play this role. But in addition to this, many other commercial objectives there. We need to focus more on commercial solution rather than social responsibility. I think we need to strike the balance between the two. You see, between the social side and also the commercial side. I agree with you. I mean, one should not overtake the other. But then how do we strike the balance? I think there we really need to look and discuss, you see, between, you see, both sides, the industry as well as the scholars, the regulator. And now we can see that the tendency, you see, when people talk about, for example, ethical finance, ethical responsible investing, you see, SDGs, ESG, SRI and whatnot. I mean, all this, you see, people are not just looking from the financial side of it, commercial side of it, but they are also looking at the moral aspect of it. I think in Sharia, usually we term it as the maqasidic dimension. So we need to strike the balance between the two, and we can see that the tendency in the market, in the industry, is that more and more people are now concerned about the social side of it. That's why if you look into the screening of equities, for example, there are quite a number of screening methodology, you see, that has incorporated the SRI element, social and responsible element in the screening criteria. So apart from having the usual financial consideration in the screening process, I mean, they do have the social dimension, and this is what I believe Islamic finance, we need to champion on this side more than others. Can SDG aligned sukuk be an important source of long-term capital for governments and IFS in the present era of COVID-19? Yes, but I believe that, you see, at the end of the day, we do not want to create more debt. We need to strike the balance as well. I think this is the dilemma that we have. When you talk about sukuk, yes, I mean, we can issue sukuk, but generally speaking, even sukuk can be considered as a debt instrument. Okay, so where do you strike the balance? You see, because we do not want to create a situation where the government just raise sukuk, but at the end of the day, we do not see the result, for example. Okay, where the money is being channeled, how it is being channeled, whether it really bring benefit to the entire society or not. So there are a lot of thinking need to be done. But of course, I mean, this is one of the good things that we can always think. I can take the example of Nigeria, for example. I was involved in the sukuk that was issued by the government of Nigeria, where they used the sukuk proceed in order to build roads and also to repair the existing roads. And when people see that, I mean, they can see the tangible result of the sukuk, we can see that there are a lot of positive comments coming even from the non-Muslim. Even though during the inception period, we can see that there are negative comments coming from the non-Muslim particularly. You see, where they say that, hey, why the government issuing sukuk? I mean, are they going to Islamize the economy or whatnot? You know, I mean, all this kind of voice has come up at the early stage. But then when they see that, oh, I mean, this sukuk is being used, you see, to build road, to repair the existing roads and also motorways, highways and whatnot, and they can see that the tangible result of it, I mean, they start appreciating it and, you know, saying that, oh, I mean, if this, what sukuk is all about, I mean, giving, you know, good result to the society and whatnot, so why not? I mean, it is something which is very, very good. So in order to cushion the impact of COVID, yes, I mean, we can issue sukuk, but we have to ensure that the money goes, you see, to the intended people purpose, so that it can kind of benefit the whole society at large, and not only, you know, certain society or certain group of people. Where COVID has created many impacts simultaneously, it demands from us to think some ways of handling such situation in the future. Now onward, business need to create some provision for reserve that will be there when God forbid such situation in the future. I think the situation in which we are in now, as I mentioned, you see, when I started my talk, it is an exceptional situation in which we are in, where there is no precedent of such a pandemic has happened I think at least, I mean, during our lifetime, this is the first time that we are experiencing, I mean, such pandemic. And definitely, you see, this is a very good case study for us, you see, to learn. There are a lot of things that we need to done, because in the past, we just take things for granted. You see, when we are doing business, when we are having our job and whatnot, we do not think of such a circumstances in which the impact will be so severe that so many people will be impacted by this kind of situation. You see, so I think even the preparation, I mean, the preparation in the past, we did not take into account of such a pandemic. And I think, you know, I strongly believe that moving forward, you see, it will change the way how we do things, how we plan ahead for our business and whatnot. Definitely, you see, we need to take this kind of unforeseen circumstances, you see, for us to face this challenging time. Is there any suggestion from IOF body for COVID? IOF has issued, I think IOF have issued some information about COVID-19. Perhaps it will be good if you can go to IOF website and have a look at the statement that have been issued by IOF. I've received it, I think, a couple of, I think if not last week, the week before or before that. So perhaps, I mean, you can have a look at it. The reserve can be invested in some beneficial venture, government, and the central bank can regulate it. Yes, I mean that is something which can be IFSB Agenda 3 has raised some questions and gave advice to RSA to tackle the impact of COVID on IFS. I don't have much information on this. I cannot comment on this. I'm sorry about that. Okay, much of the debate has been done on the challenges. What opportunities, particularly for Islamic Bank, do you see which have appeared in COVID situation? Actually, one of the things that we have learned from this situation is that, I mean, the fact that we are having this kind of conversation today, you see, online conversation, moving forward, you see, I believe that more and more, I mean, distance connection as well as kind of virtual connection is going to be used in the future. Now, how can we capitalize on this, on technology and on I mean, improving how do we deal with the technology and taking opportunity, especially in empowering our businesses in the future. Of course, maybe one of it we can say that there will be less traveling. When less traveling, there will be less costs. You see, I mean, for the company and whatnot. I mean, that is one dimension of it. But of course, I mean, there are some other effect for it. But then, how can we think of coming up with products, you see, which, okay, can be used across the globe, not only in our particular jurisdiction, when connectivity is not an issue. Take, for example, of course, I mean, we are still having this Bitcoin, for example. I mean, it has created a big hoo-ha in the world. You see, when people start, you see, buying cryptocurrencies and whatnot, and nowadays we have the blockchain technology in which there are so many parties are exploring blockchain and how we can empower blockchain in our businesses. So I think this is among the area that we really need to look into it, because in the future, physical interaction might be less, but then more virtual interaction is going to be to happen. So how can we take advantage of this? Of course, I'm just throwing it. Perhaps, I mean, there are experts outside there that can always look into it. And yesterday I was reading an article which says that, you see, for the coming years, millions of jobs is going to be replaced, you see, by technology. And we need to think ahead on how, okay, when we are not needed, you see, to do some physical work, now how can we upscale ourselves in order for us to move and do some other work? You see, so these are among the things that we really need to look into it, and we really need to think about it in the future. Okay, I think I will stop there, okay, for the time being. All right, and hope that you have benefited from the session. Okay, and I will pass back to Sister Razia.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your enlightening comments on the situation and for highlighting that the current dilemma is a unique one, and everyone must, all the stakeholders must come together to find solutions for it. Thank you for your enlightening discussion on COVID-19 and for raising the issues, commenting on what modes and what strategies can be used by all the countries. The regulators and the stakeholders must participate and come in together to form new strategies to discuss new dimensions that have arisen. I want to thank all the participants. I want to appreciate you for your patience during the technical glitches that we suffered. While it's a blessing that we're all connected with through the internet, it does come with its drawbacks. Thank you very much for your patience. It was a pleasure having all of you here. It was an honor to hear Dr. Laldin speak on the issues that COVID-19 has raised for all countries and all industries across the globe. I would like to conclude here and appreciate your patience, your endurance for the entire period. Thank you very much for the questions that you raised. They were definitely more enlightening, and they assisted us in discussing the issues in more detail. With that, I conclude the webinar. Thank you very much.